Hey everyone, this is Chris Crazy House, and I just got done watching the brand new Voltron Legendary Defender series that appears on Netflix, and it's produced by DreamWorks, and I believe the showrunners and creators are the same people who worked on the Avatar, The Last Airbender series, as well as The Legend of Korra. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the show, as well as some comparisons between the old show and the new show, and maybe the possibilities of where it's going, and some of the things I liked and some of the things I don't like. First of all, I will say it's a decent show. I would definitely recommend watching it if you have a Netflix subscription. Go and check it out. You got nothing to lose. It's a decent enough series, and I think a lot of young teens and a lot of young kids will like it because they're already familiar with shows like The Legend of Korra and Avatar, so this is a natural progression to that, since it's the same people that worked on that worked on this, and it kind of reintroduces a younger audience to the classic that is Voltron, or Go Lion if you're familiar with the Japanese version of the show. But first and foremost, I'll just say that I enjoyed it for the most part. It's a decent show. There are a couple of little things that I won't say that I didn't like, but I just wasn't like, wasn't turned on by it. It wasn't the greatest thing ever. uh, I was not enthused about this show from the beginning. Like I had heard rumors and rumblings about it, so it wasn't something that excited me. I'll be more excited to see a new season of Young Justice or something like that. I wasn't as excited about seeing a show remade again, but they did a pretty decent job on it. I like the character designs are very well done. Like I said, you can see that influence that from Japan, but you can also see that style that's already been done with the Legend of Korra. You can see that correlation with the character designs in the new Voltron. I guess the only character designs that I don't like are some of the robot sentries that you see in the show. Like, I like the original designs better. I thought that was a little bit different, having these weird looking robots with these devilish demonic grins on their face. I just thought that looked a lot cooler. I'm a big fan of the original Voltron show. I grew up with it. It was one of those shows I used to watch right after I came home from school every day, so I'm very familiar with it. I think I've seen pretty much every episode, and I've rewatched some in preparation for this. Uh, let's see. Like I said, I like the character designs. The character designs are very well done for the main characters, as well as for some of the main villains. I like how they've redesigned Zarkon, how they redesigned Witch Hagar and the druids, and some of the higher command soldiers and generals like Sendek. I really enjoy seeing those designs, and the designs of the main characters in the Voltron Force. I think they all turned out pretty well. Uh, I like the idea that they call them paladins, and they have these weapons that they all have a certain weapon that they use, and I kind of like how they individualize both the weapons for the paladins as well as the weapons and abilities for the actual lions. I do appreciate that. Now, one of the big differences between this new version of Voltron and the old one is, in this new one, it seems like they're introducing themselves. The team are introducing themselves to each other for the first time, and they're really learning how to be a team, and also learning how to form Voltron. Like there literally is a whole episode where they're focused on how do we form Voltron, how do we come together as a team, because it just shows them they meet up in school. Then they kind of get caught up in this whole thing of intrigue when they find the Blue Lion and go to the other side of the universe and become the Voltron Force, just kind of haphazardly getting put together. So, in the original, for those who remember it, they were already a concrete team in the beginning of the show before they even found or learned about Planet Eris and Voltron. They were almost like a crack commando team, and they got captured by Zarkon. They were all imprisoned together. They survived the gladiator pits together, and they all escaped together. So even by the time we got to the fact that they became the Voltron Force, they were already a very tight team already. So that's one of the main differences in that. By not having that in this series, they kind of made that a plot point and a story point. And this is kind of, apples and oranges as to what you prefer. I won't say one is better or one is worse. I will say that having them as a tight team at the beginning, it lends itself to focus on other stories later on and how they react and interact with each other when they are in certain situations. But not having them as a team from the beginning makes it so that you have to make that a main focus of episodes going on. Like they even learn new things about each other. Spoiler alert for those who have not seen the series yet. Spoiler alert, I'm giving you a fair warning. One of the major changes in the show is that the smaller character, Pidge, is actually a female. And they don't know that at first. Everyone just thinks it's a he at first. So I guess we got one of the first transgender characters, and I expected this from the showrunners because in The Legend of Korra, they made her a lesbian by the end of the show. So they like trying to, shake things up and add a little bit different character features. I did think it was a little weird that they had a whole episode addressing the fact that Pidge was actually a female, and all these characters, some of the characters think they already knew it already. They just didn't say anything to anybody else, and they're just like, well, we figured that's what you were. And they just kind of accepted it and then just moved on. And it's funny because she reveals her real name, but they just keep on calling her Pidge, and Pidge still dresses the same and everything. So I guess that was a safe way for them to have a transgender character. Because Pidge it's not because she feels like a man on the inside that she became a boy. It's what she was trying to find out. She was wearing a disguise so she could find out what happened to her family, who was lost in an exploration, and they had the first interaction with Zarkon, and they were captured by Zarkon. So she was trying to go through the military academy so she could find out what happened to her family, and that was the whole thing. So it's not like she's a real transgender where she feels like a man on the inside and has to dress and act like a man, but I think that was their safe way, quote unquote, of doing that. And they literally just don't focus on it later on in the rest of the show. They just acknowledge it in one episode, and then that's it after that. I think the only character surprised by it was the character Lance. Getting to that, some of the comedy in the show was funny. It's a funny show, but there are certain things that were kind of hit and miss for me. I think it's kind of, in certain situations, I thought they didn't really need the comedy, but I understand why it's there. That's the type of writing that young people like nowadays. They like that jokey sarcasm, kind of ha-ha stuff, and even some toilet humor mixed in there. Because there's literally a fart joke in one episode. So a lot of young kids like that, a lot of teens like that type of humor, and it's kind of mixed in with the action. And like I said, it's that very sarcastic, almost not so interested humor, but it's added in there. And I liked it on other shows more so, like what they did with Avatar: The Last Airbender. I thought it fit a lot better there than it does on this show. In some instances, it seems a little forced, but I just like, whatever. That's what kids like nowadays, so I'm not downing it. It's just like certain situations I thought, okay, would they really be making jokes in this situation? But then again, the whole thing is not real to begin with, so why make a big fuss over it? I do like how they gave a little bit more for Princess Allura to do. There's more to the character than there was in the original, of course. A lot of times when they wrote female characters back then, they were just damsels in distress. I mean, it was very revolutionary for her to become one of the pilots when one of the original male pilots dies. But in this one, she has a lot more to do. Like she commands the actual ship. The castle is actually a ship that they fly through the universe, and she can open wormholes and everything else. Like her whole being there is part of the castle and the castle's powers and everything. Like they need her. She can't just be a damsel in distress. They actually need her to get to different places in the universe. She's very essential. They also revealed the idea that she's actually a shapeshifter, or I guess her race of people were shapeshifters, so they can change their shape a little bit. Because there's an episode where she disguised herself as one of the bad guys. So I liked how they did her and how they added more to their characters later on. The character Shiro is probably the most interesting character out of the bunch, in my opinion. He is the leader of the team and he pilots the Black Lion. He was captured originally with Pidge's family, and he himself, by himself, survived the gladiator pits. And not only that, he became like the champion. But doing that, he lost his arm and he has like a new robotic arm that the witch Hagar gave him. And like I said, he gets back to Earth, and that's how they kind of meet and form the Voltron Force together. And of course, there are some things with him where you're wondering whether he's going to go back to the Galra Empire and become part of the villains again, or what's going to happen with him, because he obviously has some PTSD from fighting in the gladiator pits and surviving that ordeal. And you kind of see that in certain episodes. Even though he was also one of the few out of all the guys that learned how to pilot their line the right way first. And he was the only one that was in sync with everything at first. So, interesting to see what's going to happen with that character. Now, for those who remember the original Voltron, Shiro is the character that dies, and they wind up having to replace him with Princess Allura. In the original, he actually dies. He gets killed by the witch Hagar, and actually, there's a scene in the last episode of this new Voltron that mirrors his death scene in the original series, where the witch multiplies herself and uses illusions to trick him so he can't see which side or who's coming from where. And he winds up getting killed by one of Hagar's monsters. And it was always a very sad episode. It's one of those episodes that sticks out in my mind when I was a kid. So I remember that very well. And I almost thought it was going to happen again in this very last episode, but they didn't do it. So, and one of the other story notes, also a spoiler alert, if you have not seen it. Zarkon was actually the original pilot of the Black Lion, and that's what they revealed by the last episode. He actually is able to take control away from Shiro at one point. So, I want to see what the story is behind that. It was in the very last episode, so I guess if they do a second season, they'll address how he was the original pilot, and did he just go bad and decide to take over the universe? You know, what happened? I would like to find out. I would like to know. It's kind of interesting dynamic and interesting flip, because in the original series, Zarkon starts out bad and winds up becoming good by the end, and his son Lotor becomes more the evil villain of the series. So I'll be interested in seeing how things change with this dynamic. So this time, I guess he started out good and became bad. So we'll see how things work out if they do a second season. I would very much like to see it. Last but not least, I guess one of the few things that I did not like was that the fact there were two Robeasts in the whole series. Like I said, because the whole dynamic of them not being a team from the beginning, they focused more on the character development with the team and not the Robeast or the monster of the week, which they had in the original show. And I was kind of upset not to see that many Robeasts. And even some of the designs I wasn't very impressed with. I liked the second one more than the first. It would be nice to see more Robeasts in the series if they do a second season, because you need more giant monsters for Voltron to fight. You know, it was almost kind of like, why would he even bother forming Voltron several times if he, wasn't going to be fighting monsters every week? But that's just my humble opinion. I'm a monster fan and a kaiju fan, so for me, I want to see giant mechs fighting giant monsters. Just something that I would love to see. But let me know what you guys think. If you've seen the new Voltron series, if you like it, if you don't like it, put it in the comments section. And let me know what you like better in the new series, or what you think is not done as good as the original series. Anyway, that's my review of Voltron Legendary Defender. I would like to see more and see where the story goes. And that's it. Chris Crazy House signing out. Peace.